Meanwhile, the world is witnessing a new wave of COVID-19 pandemic infections, while Omicron is still considered a relatively mild variant. The rising number of cases shows as to why the variant should not be dealt with lightly. So let's tell you how the governments are battling against the pandemic. Let's start with France, a country that's been hammered under the different waves of the COVID-19 pandemic, especially because of the inept handling by the Emmanuel Macron government. France has reported a record-breaking tally since the pandemic began. Close to 500,000 people tested positive for the virus in just the last 24 hours. And this is being explained by the rapidly spreading Omicron variant. Now, the other European nations are also battling with high rates of infections. Europe's largest economy, Germany, has also passed the 100,000 mark in terms of the number of infections in a span of a day. And at least about 239 people have also lost their lives in the span of a day. And Omicron is now the dominant variant, accounting for almost about 70% of all new infections. And this is why Germany has further tightened curbs to cut contamination. And Austria has also shattered all previous records of its COVID-19 tally. Despite a record rise, the Chancellor has said that hospitalizations still remain lower than expected. The government intends to apply for vaccine mandate to all people aged 14 and above. If so, then Austria will become the first EU nation to do for the general public.
Die Pandemie ist nicht vorbei. Sie haben heute auch wieder den
The pandemic is not over. You have seen the daily figures today again. We have just under 30,000 infections. That is a frighteningly high number at first. On the other hand, because the Omicron variant of the virus has to be evaluated differently from the Delta variant that plagued us before, all calculations are currently as we predicted.
Japan is also witnessing a massive rise in the number of infections. Fresh restrictions being placed in the capital city of Tokyo and dozens of other regions. The quasi-emergency measures permit the governors to limit mobility and also to limit the daily activities that people can in fact carry on because of the high number of infections.
When you look at the infection situation, it is inevitable. However, we have to get the economy going, even if it is imposed. I think we should have to work well in order to have those things coexist.
Meanwhile, in China, the country has reported its lowest tally of infections in over 2 weeks. This has been made possible after cities with a risk for infections have taken some pretty harsh steps. Lockdowns, mass testing and also very strict quarantines have been imposed. The strategy takes on extra urgency with the Winter Olympics slated to start on the 4th of February next month. Meanwhile, in the neighbouring nation of India, cases are showing a pretty sharp uptick. Nearly about 300,000 people have tested positive for the COVID-19 infection, and close to about 9,000 of these infections are said to be of the Omicron variant, which is a rise of almost about 18% from the previous day's cases. The positivity rate has also climbed up marginally from 14.43% to about 15.13%. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.